Hello and good morning, and welcome back to the Business First Created podcast. So, my guest today, I am super excited to have her on here. It is Sarah Potts, my very own virtual assistant. The name of her business is Joyfully Organized, and she has definitely started organizing my life. Good morning, Sarah. How are you today?
Good morning. I'm doing so well. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
I am so excited because I will just say, I don't know what episode this is going to be, but whatever episode it's going to be, guys, it's going to be in at least the 30s or the 40s. I have had several moments since I started this podcast back in May where I have talked to my guests about hiring people, hiring virtual assistants, hiring podcast managers, hiring editors, just basically hiring people to make your life easier. And I will say that there were a few episodes. For example, I believe it was episode 4 with Anami Tonkin. And then it was episode recently, I think it was 19 with Rachel Greiman. I was like, yes, I must hire someone. And then after I chatted with Rachel, I was like, no, I did it. I hired a virtual assistant. So one of the things, Sarah, is I'm an Enneagram 8. I'm very type A. I don't like to hand anything off to anyone. And so you are amazing at taking things and running with them and making me feel like my tasks are in good hands. So, first of all, we all know who I am, but who else do you work with as a virtual assistant?
Yeah, that's a great question because I feel like every virtual assistant has like their own like field that they really love to work in. And so ours, we really love working with photographers and any sort of like coach and consultant. So only service-based business owners that are generally photographers, coaches, and consultants.
Okay, and that just ran off your tongue, so it's clear that you've practiced that. Okay.
I try.
So let's start with the photographers because you know that half my business is photography and a
Yep.
lot of the listeners are photographers. What is like the number one task that you do for most of the photographers that hire you?
Absolutely. So I will say, Colie, you tend to be very different, I feel like, from a lot of photographers I work with in a good way. You love, like, you are very organized. You have very good systems in place. A lot of photographers I work with, no like shame or anything. They're very creative and that's what they're very good at. But the like day-to-day details of like email follow-ups or onboarding or all of those details are just not their strength, nor should it need to be. So one of the things I love specifically working with photographers on is letting them be able to focus on their creative work and what they're so good at, and then coming in to help support them to make sure no balls are getting dropped. Clients are getting followed up with. We're making sure like that all the boxes are getting checked so they have really good client experience.
And of course, that's literally what I do on the other half of my business is I create those
Exactly.
systems for photographers in Dubsado. But like, so what do you do on that end? Like, are you managing photographer CRMs? Do you work with photographers that don't have CRMs at all? Like, what does that look like for you in terms of managing what could be like several, multiple photographers' inboxes and client management and communication?
Yeah, absolutely. So I will say I am thankful that most all of the photographers I work with have a CRM in place already. So whether that's Dubsado or some other CRM, and they have some sort of basic structure of a workflow that they like to go through. But as you probably know, we like to customize a lot of things or like email templates, and there's always going to be people who are emailing you that is not going to fit directly in
Mm-hmm.
a workflow. And so I help and my team helps by monitoring some emails. If someone has a question about, something or like we're just helping to follow up specifically with emails or getting things on the calendar. And then also making sure that the workflows are functioning properly. So, your emails about getting a testimonial are going out when those
Mm-hmm.
testimonials have come in. What are then we doing with those? Are we putting them on your
Oh.
website or are we putting them on social media? All the next steps that come next.
Sarah, you just added something to your task list. Because, okay,
Oh, I love that.
were you on my Instagram recently when I was doing a recent sale for my course? I had one post where I was talking about the course, not really the sale, but I was talking about the course.
Mhm.
And I emailed all of my students and I said, hey, if you guys have a chance today, can you just pop on this post and answer one of these 3 questions? And it was basically, why did you decide to do a course instead of DIY? What made you decide to work with me? Like, I don't remember what the third question was. It's not really that important. But like 11 people went on that post and were like saying all of these nice things. And I did screenshot them. So now I know what to do with them. I'm just going to send them to you and
Exactly.
make them look pretty and put them on the website and all that stuff. No, that's great. Because one of the things that I emphasize when I'm setting up someone's Dubsado is the need to get those testimonials, those Google reviews. And then where I feel like a lot of people fall short, and as you said, this is no shade to photographers or really any other creative, but like the entire time that I've been in business, when I got like a, oh my God, that image was fucking amazing, I would immediately go put it on my website. When I get a
Mhm.
testimonial that's amazing, I'm like, okay, schedule time to go to website to put this on here. And many creatives just don't do it in the moment. Like maybe they let
Right.
them stack up in some kind of folder and then I mean, but those things are gems when it comes to client messaging. You don't know what to post on social media? Go post one of those amazing testimonials that you got.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, I mean, as business owners, like there's always so many balls in every court and like things are, moving around that like things like that, if you don't have some sort of partner in your business that can like help remind you of things, you're having to like do it all by yourself. So there's just also some value of having someone else there to help make sure that we're keeping the balls in the air, if we want to use that metaphor.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to take a step back because one of the things that I hear from many photographers that I coach, I set up Dubsado, whatever, however it is I come across them, they're like, yeah, but I don't know what I would have a virtual assistant do. And I will admit, I was like in love with your onboarding process because it is very similar to what I do. I have my clients like basically brain dump. Like, what do you currently do in your business? And then I'm looking for ways that I can help them improve that in
Mhm.
the systems. And you have a very similar process. So tell me about your onboarding process and about that amazing onboarding call and then what you do with the information after.
Yeah, absolutely. So during an onboarding call with clients, I tell them if they want to come to the call prepared with a complete list of like, here's everything I want you to do, that is fantastic. Do that. That's great. Not everyone's there, and that's completely fine. You do not have to be there in order to hire help. I am here, and a lot of virtual assistants are here. We'll get on a call with you. Tell me, what are you doing in your business? Or one of the questions I love to ask is like, you wake up in the morning, what is most stressing you out about your business? What is that thing that you know has been on your list forever? You're like, oh, I just need to do it. Okay, well, let's talk about that. Let's figure out what it is, and then what part of it or the entirety of it can we take off your hands. And I think one of the things that people tend to get stuck with, and I will say I get this stuck in my own business working with the team, is like feeling like you need to hand over the entire project to make it worthwhile, when there is pieces of it that you can delegate out and you can still do the rest of it, especially if there's a portion of you like, you don't have to do all the administrative things that make the whole project come together.
Because this week, or was it last week? It was last week. I finally got my Airtable set up to where, because guys, just in case you don't know, I actually did 2 hires in the same month. I hired Sarah as my virtual assistant, and I hired Haley Gaffin as my podcast manager. And one of the things that I've been playing around with for the last 2 months was how can I get them to do everything and just leave me out of it? So finally, last week, I set up my Airtable where when I have uploaded an episode into Descript for Haley to go edit, blog, do all her magic, I change the status and Haley gets an automatic email that says Colie has given you a new podcast to edit. And it tells her the URLs and all this is automated, guys. You know me, everything's automated. And then when Haley is done with her part, she now changes it to set to publish. And then Sarah gets an email that says, you have a new podcast episode to finalize. And then Sarah goes in and she writes the email, she uploads it to YouTube. They are both doing all of the tasks to where now literally the only thing I have to do for this podcast is hit record. It is amazing. But I also took myself out of the middle using automation so that the two people that I hired to do their zone of genius can now talk to each other, but not really talk to each other. But then
Exactly.
everything's done. And I just get notifications after everything is done that, hey, it's ready to go. It's fabulous. So for the people that are hiring you, are you typically the only other like member that they've hired out, or do they have other people that they have outsourced tasks to?
Yeah, so I think it honestly depends. I would say about like half the people we work with, we are the first person that they are hiring in their business. And the other half is we are coming in as part of a team. So maybe they have a podcast. So they have a podcast editor, or they have a marketing strategist that's providing all of this great marketing strategy, but they need someone to actually do the physical implementation of that. So I will say it goes honestly like 50-50 both ways.
I mean, but that's good to know. It's also really good to know that you are the first hire, because I feel like sometimes people, and I actually tell people this with CRM management, like when people are like, oh, I need to hire a virtual assistant, I actually tell them, but do you know what you do in your business? Like if you get your CRM set up, you can then hand it over to your virtual assistant and you will make their job easier. So I don't know if you agree with that, but that's what I tell a lot
Yeah.
of people. Although I do know that you, in essence, off of that onboarding call, will actually help them figure out what their systems are if they don't have systems. So either way, guys, if you already have your CRM set up, and you're looking
Mm-hmm.
to hire a virtual assistant, someone like Sarah is happy to like pick up the slack, get that back end going. Or if you come to her with nothing, she has, a wealth of knowledge that will help you get started, which is amazing. Let's pivot to non-photographers. So,
Yes.
are there any differences between what photographers hire you to do and what the other creatives hire you to do? Like, are there any differences, or is it really just all service providers basically all need the same kinds of tasks?
I will say, from the most part, all service providers generally need the same sorts of tasks to have their business running. There might be differences in the tools that we're using. So, like for some clients, we might be helping to send out some emails via PickTime. That's not going to be applicable to everyone that's a service provider. But it's the same sort of structure. So I kind of like tend to break it up into categories. So like we do a lot of administrative tasks. So helping with emails and calendars and data entry and document formatting. We help with a marketing assistant. So like scheduling out social media posts or putting up blog posts or helping to get emails sent out. So like we do with Flowdesk for your podcast emails.
Mhm.
And then also helping with like making sure our systems and operations are talking together. So we're using all of our systems in ways that make sense and are talking to each other. And then we also do, especially since the pandemic started, helping with a lot of like tech assistance with like webinars or online courses so that all you're doing is facilitating and someone else is managing like the Q&A or any tech issues that may come up.
And I know what you use, but I'm actually going to let you talk. I'm not going to steal your thunder. What is it that you guys use to manage your business and your interactions with your clients on the back end?
Surprise, surprise, it is Dubsado that we also use.
You use that for project management, but what do you use for task management?
We use Asana for our task management. So we have all of our clients in there. They all have a private board. So the client can see exactly where we are with any of their projects. Me and my team will be able to see anything. It's been really great, especially because if one of us is out, like I generally work with you, Colie, but like if I am out sick and something happens, another team member can pick up because we have our SOPs documented. They can see my communication in there. They can pick it up should something happen and I'm out for, a couple days or anything like that.
Yeah, and from the client side, like when it's at 2 a.m., guys, and I'm like, oh, this is a new thing that I want to give to Sarah. I can go into my Asana board and basically assign it to her, and then I basically, write what I need. Sometimes I make her Loom videos, like, hey, girl, this is how you do this and this and this,
Mm-hmm.
and then I put it in there, and she has these really great statuses, so that I know, like, sometimes she's put things on waiting for client info. And that's like a red flash to me, like, oh, wait, Sarah, what do I owe you? What do you need so that you can get this task done for me? And I know that she's doing it using recurring tasks too, because, my podcast episodes, guys, she's doing that for me every week. So she gets a recurring task that tells her, hey, Colie needs this email written by Wednesday for the podcast on Thursday. So it's amazing. So, what kind of tips would you give to someone who knows that they need a virtual assistant, but they're scared to take that next step? Like, what is the process of looking for and actually hiring a VA? Because my experience with you guys, I'm just going to be, fully transparent. Sarah followed me on Instagram. I went and I was super nosy, clicked all on her website, and then I saw that a fellow photographer friend, Carolyn Fong, had hired Sarah. So I dropped into Carolyn's DMs and I'm like, tell me all about Sarah. What do you make her do? Is she awesome to work with? And literally like 5 days later, I hired Sarah. So, I mean, mine was a pretty weird, like, this is my path to hire Sarah. But anyone else who doesn't like know a virtual assistant to hire, what kind of tips do you have for getting started and ready to hire a virtual assistant?
Yeah, great question. So first, shout out to Carolyn. Love Carolyn. She's fantastic. Second, for hiring a virtual assistant. I think in one of the previous episodes that you were just talking about, those complimentary consultations, you really should be viewing those as alignment calls. So find some virtual assistants, find them on Instagram, get some recommendations, like find some websites that you kind of resonate with. But then don't hesitate to sign up for several consultation calls and use those as a chance for an alignment call, because the two number one things that I want you to think of when you're hiring a virtual assistant is you need to be able to trust that person. You are letting them into your business. And unlike some of the other people you might hire, you often will give them access to
Full
almost
access.
everything. Yeah, they're putting out things on your behalf. You're giving them access. So you, not that they're not trustworthy, but you have to feel like you can trust them to do that. And then you want to get along with them in a personality standpoint. You want to make sure your personality is aligned, because again, you're going to be working very closely with them. And so if it's not someone that you feel like you're jiving well with, it's just not going to work. So schedule some alignment calls, get on those calls, and sure, learn, about what they can physically and technically do for you, but make sure you feel like that is someone that you can trust, and that is someone that you and your personalities, they get along with really well.
Because I will say, guys, in my perspective, not only am I letting Sarah into my business, I'm actually letting her into my client's business, which is
Mhm.
scary as fuck. So when I had the conversation with Sarah, I was like, okay, we sound like we get along. I gave her some tasks and she knocked those out of the park. And guys, I will just attest, like now I will just give Sarah anything. I mean, she wants my bank account number. She can probably have that too. I mean, it is okay to ease in. It is okay to like test the waters and give them
Mhm.
access to things that, you're like, I don't really want to give them access to my entire Dubsado account. Let's just give them access to my email account first. Let's see how that goes. Because I mean, literally through LastPass, I mean, I think Sarah has access to most of my things now. And so you do have to make sure that you really like your virtual assistant and that you get along with them. But Sarah, let's talk about the other end. Like, I don't see myself firing you or you firing me. But what happens if you hire someone
Mhm.
and you, as the client, know that they're not a good fit, or the virtual assistant is like, yeah, I'm probably not the right one for you. Like, what do you do in a situation like that?
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is it does happen. It's going to happen. And I think that two things. It's going to be a learning opportunity. Oftentimes, like sometimes unfortunately, you're going to work with someone for a couple of months and you're like, "Hey, this is maybe just not a great fit." Whether it's technically just not a really good fit with me personality-wise. And so I think from a client perspective, just be very upfront, being like, "Hey, I don't see this. This is where I'm having an issue. Do you think that this is something we can address and maybe like work around?" Or is it just something like it may not work? And if so, like don't hesitate to ask for another recommendation. So here's the thing is I know many other virtual assistants, and I am more than happy to provide a recommendation to any of them if we're not a good fit, because like there are plenty of us, there's plenty of work, and I want to make sure that like I want to enjoy working with you just as much as you want to enjoy
Mm-hmm.
working with me. And so I want to make sure it's a good fit on both sides. So I think like honesty, like talking about like, hey, this is what I'm experiencing, it's not really working, can like is there something that we can like tweak and make it better and
Mm-hmm.
like work around that, or maybe it's just not a good fit, and like what do those next steps look like, can you provide a recommendation for someone else, how do we wrap up in a way that feels satisfactory for both of us.
Because I will say, I don't really think that we've had this issue yet, but when I tell people my experience of the first time that I outsourced my images, people are like, oh, but you would do that, Colie. I would never do that. No. So when I hired my first editors out of the image salon, the first 3 to 4 catalogs with every single new editor that they gave me, I went back and forth. And I don't want to say I nitpicked their work, but like I tried to make them understand what decision they made that I would not have made. I mean, for a few of them, they delivered an image gallery to me of like 100 images. I went back and edited like 20 of them and recorded myself doing it and sent them back the catalog so that they could see the adjustments that I made. And I'm like, please re edit this. And
Yeah.
what I loved about that process was it seems like I'm very type A, and I am. But guys, the people that you hire and the people that you trust to outsource your business to are not mind readers. So if you do not tell them what is wrong, if you do not inform them when they either did something that you don't like or they didn't do something that you expected them to do, if you don't tell them, they don't know. So, I mean, like,
100%.
I mean, so, just make sure that you are, in fact, communicating with the virtual assistant that you have hired to make sure that it is a good experience. Because if you are having some issues on this side and you're not actually expressing them. You're just going back and basically redoing what they did wrong or redoing what they missed. I mean, that's a real missed opportunity for you to actually take more work off of your plate and make sure that it's done in a way to where you don't feel like you're constantly going behind them and like picking up the dirty laundry, so to speak.
Yes, 100%. And this is like one of the hard truths that I like hate to share, but love to share too is like, so often people come to hire a virtual assistant when they're completely overwhelmed in their business and they're just like, I need someone to help me, which is great. Please do that. But I will say, anytime you start working with a virtual assistant, it is likely to create more work, at least for the first little bit, because they have to and I have to learn what is my client's style for the way that they are doing things, and how like I have to get to know you and your business and how you communicate and how you do things. And so it is going to take a little bit more work on your end in the beginning in order for it to become a smooth workflow like down the road. So I have some clients now I've worked with for 5 or 6 years, and it's like a well-oiled machine because we know each other so well. But that beginning first like few, whether it's weeks or months, may take a little bit more work on your end, which I know is super hard to hear.
I mean, and I've heard that. I haven't really heard it about hiring a virtual assistant, but going back to the editing, the only reason I'm
Mhm.
saying that is because as photographers, I feel like that's the first hire. Like photographers look for
Yeah,
an editor before they look for anything else.
yeah.
And I have heard people say, "Oh, well, I tried editing and it didn't work out." And I'm like, "Okay, what didn't work out?" "Oh, well, I had to go and re-edit the entire catalog." "Okay. Did you tell them what you re-edited?" "Well, no, I didn't have time to do that." "Okay. So did you hire them again?" "Well, no, they didn't do it right the first time." Yeah. I mean, it takes a little back and forth. Again, no one
Hmm.
is a mind reader. Even if I edit a full gallery for the editor and I send them a video, the next session is going to be slightly different. They still
Yeah.
don't know enough about you and your processes to know which tools to use when. So it does take a little bit of back and forth, especially for someone like me who photographs people indoors and outdoors. I mean,
Hmm.
all y'all know by now, I don't do the mountain photos, but I do photograph people in their backyards. And those
Hmm.
images tend to be very different than the images that I edited inside because, hello, sun, there's lots of sun outside. And so
Yeah.
if I don't go back and forth and show them a couple of different examples and allow them to, really learn my editing process, I am missing out on a great opportunity. Because again, guys, even though I send back 3 or 4 catalogs with every new editor I get, eventually they start sending me catalogs that I just sweep. And I'm like, that one image, I don't like it. Let me delete it. And then I export it and I'm done. Like you get to that point, but it takes work to get there. Yeah.
It does. Yeah. And I will say, and you mentioned this, Loom may become your best friend because here's the thing is I also want to say like if you film yourself doing your process just via Loom, don't feel like you have to make it perfect. Don't feel like it has to be this well edited video. Just film yourself doing it, send it to me, and I will then learn how you do it.
I feel like I've sent you a few Loom videos where I completely lost my train of thought. I was doing something and I was like, I don't remember what I was going to show you next. Let me pause this. I'll be right back. I feel
All
like I
good.
sent you one of those recently.
But yeah, you don't have to be perfect. That's the other thing that I feel like people like. I mean, it's your business. You want it to feel like well professional and everything, but you're letting someone into the back end. Don't feel like you have to be perfect. Just be who you are. Share where you are. We will work together to figure it out.
And I want to say, because I feel like this needs to be said, virtual assistants do not judge you.
No,
I
we
feel like
don't.
when people hire me, especially if they've had Dubsado for years, they're like, "Oh,
Oh yeah.
Colie, I'm so sorry. It's so bad in there." I'm like, "But that's why you hired me. You hired me to clean it all up." Now, I will admit, in the whole time I've been doing Dubsado setups, there have been like 2 or 3 people where it took me a couple times to go into their account and clean it up because I was hyperventilating. They had so much stuff in there. I was like, 20 copies of the exact same proposal, and I had to open every one to see what was different. And it turns out there was nothing different. That particular client kept hitting save as template instead of save. So she was just
Love that.
creating copy after copy after copy. But when you're scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and you're like, you got to check every one of these to make sure that there's not something important that you're missing.
Right.
Well, I don't judge you. I have a cocktail
No.
for an account like that, but I don't judge you. I clean it up, I
No.
make it all pretty, and Sarah does the same thing as your virtual assistant.
This is all the whole thing about trust. Like we love to come like here's the thing is I love a good challenge. I love setting up good things. So like please like I've pretty much probably seen I won't say I've seen all of it, but I've seen a lot of things. There's really nothing going to shock me. I'm here to help you grow your business and whether that means get more clients or take more time off and spend with your family. That's my goal. And so like how can we get you there and like clean up if we need to clean up your business? How do we do that?
And I just want to say one of the other things that I hear when people are contemplating hiring a virtual assistant is, well, but I don't have that much work for them. So, of course, Sarah can probably speak to other virtual assistant friends that she has. But like,
Mm-hmm.
I currently only hire Sarah for 10 hours a month. And I didn't think that was going to be enough, but it turns out I'm not giving her enough work currently. Like, I felt like I was going to go to 20 really fast. And just because I guess it's like my slower month, I haven't had to increase yet. But I just want to let you guys know like, there's a lot that you can get done in 10 hours a month. Like, it doesn't have to be that you're hiring someone off the bat for 10 hours a week in order to make it worth it. So, let's talk about when people are financially ready to hire a virtual assistant because I feel like there are rules with bookkeeping. Like bookkeepers are always like, if you're making like my particular bookkeeper always says, we tend to encourage people to hire bookkeepers when you get above mid five figures. And I don't think
Mm-hmm.
that that's true of virtual assistants, or is it? Like, when is it that someone should just is there a money mark where someone should naturally start to think about, okay, I should probably hire someone to help me in my business. A virtual assistant is probably a good hire. Is there a range like that?
So I don't know that there's a specific like number range that I would identify. What I do identify and help try to help people think through is there do you feel like you are at capacity in your business such that you cannot take on additional clients, additional work because you are doing so much of the administrative stuff in your background
Mhm.
that you can't get to that next level and make that more income because you're stuck doing the administrative? Could you outsource part of the administrative stuff and sign more clients, therefore would cover that more than cover
Mhm.
that cost then?
Yes, totally agree. Everyone should be thinking when you think of hiring someone, buying a new piece of software, buying a course, mentorship, whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
you should be thinking about how many new clients do I need to acquire in order to pay for this? And if
Yep.
the answer is less than one, I mean, I just encourage you to just leap and just hire them like right now because
Yep.
whatever they do for you is going to enable you to hire at least or to acquire at least one more client. Like, for example, guys, the thing that I actually hired Sarah to help me with initially is she is prepping for my VIP days. So when someone hires me, I go through all your stuff, we have lots of in depth pre work. And now, what I'm doing after I get all the pre work is Sarah is going in and basically loading everything that I need in order to do my magic on implementation day. But I am no longer copying and pasting emails into people's Dubsado accounts. I am no longer copying and pasting my templates in there. Sarah is doing all of that for me. She is setting up the tags, she is setting up the project statuses so that when I go in to basically streamline and automate everything that I need is already sitting in my client's account. I mean, like I love Sarah. I love her. She is like my new best friend because
Oh
it
yeah.
is so amazing when I go in there and I'm like, oh, I don't have to spend 3 hours copying and pasting before I can get to the good part. Now I just get to do the good part. And so for photographers, of course, she's going to do something different for you. But for the most part, Sarah does help me on the Dubsado side of my business.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love you too. We love working with you. And I think that's just a great example of like when you're learning to start delegate or when you start delegating, it does not, I think some people, at least the people I've come in contact with, it does not have to be the entire project.
Mm-hmm.
I do not need to be doing the Dubsado the whole setup, nor do I like, is that my in my like capabilities. But what is like I can get it all prepped for you to make your job easier so you spend less time so you have more time to spend elsewhere in your business where you need to be, like where your special sauce is needed.
And now it's not even spending that time on my business because I'm homeschooling Chloe now. So now it's, oh no,
I
we
mean,
can
yes.
spend 3 hours doing math and science, Chloe, because Sarah is prepping everything. And then when we're done with this, then I can go and do the implementation. I mean,
Yes.
it works amazing.
I love it.
So, in closing, where can everyone find you? Where can they find out more information about your services?
Awesome. So my website is joyfullyorganized.com, and you can find a bunch of information there. But if you scroll down to the bottom too, I do have, it's an opt-in, but it'll basically give you a PDF too that gives you tons of ideas of what you can delegate to a virtual assistant. So feel free to like grab that and just like start getting some ideas if you want to run with it. But you can find out more about me and my company on joyfullyorganized.com.
Thank you, Sarah. It was lovely to have you on the podcast. I mean, I feel like this is going to need an update because I've literally been working with you for I think it's 3 months now. So I feel like mid year next year we're going to have another one, and by then I'm going to have given you like everything. People are going to be like, Colie, what do you do in your own business? Oh, I'm really not sure anymore. Maybe we should ask Sarah what I actually still do in my own business because it's
Right. I'm just
so
living my
amazing.
best. Coley's over here living her best life, taking all the trips. She's like, someone else is running
Someone
it.
else is running it. It's all good. All right, guys, that's it for this episode. Thank you for listening and see you next time.